Want to introduce Tracy, our media director here at 1123. Say hello, and her puppy's in the background.
Yep. You got the
Pupper in
doggos
the
in the
background.
background.
Yeah. So what we're hoping to do here is a weekly coffee series where we kind of talk about tips in media and changes in media that we're seeing. So we both got our coffee ready for today. And we are going to be talking about one of Tracy's favorite subjects. Actually, I should say favorite word here is frequency.
Frequency.
So, with the way that media has changed between traditional and a blend of digital and social media and own channels, I think something for me that I've noticed is the knee-jerk reaction of metrics that will translate across everything is impressions, oftentimes. I think it's a miss if people don't consider and look at frequency. So, do you want to talk a little bit about frequency and the importance in what you're looking at when you're
Sure.
planning and monitoring campaigns?
Yeah. So, like you said, Shana, with impressions, that is one of the metrics that is translated across pretty much any channel that you would potentially buy, whether it's traditional media, digital media, even your broadcast, your out of home, print. But what a lot of people don't necessarily realize is those impressions is kind of a mix of not only reach, but your frequency as well. And so, what we try to do when we were kind of looking at frequency is peel that back because obviously, you have your targeting parameters that you set in place where you're hoping to reach either a specific audience, a group, that type of a thing. And then what a lot of people do kind of miss is you've got to be able to have them interact or potentially see the message multiple times before it's going to start resonating with your brand or your campaign objectives. We don't want to just like set it one time, have it reach somebody, and then it just disappears and they don't ever see it again because we're not building top of mind of, or
Mhm.
potential lose out on that interaction if people, you're busy, you're doing a
Yeah.
hundred different things a day. And
Yes.
so then that it just makes it the more that you can have those touch points and interactions, the more that somebody can have that opportunity to potentially see a message or engage with it.
Mhm.
That's where that frequency comes from.
Yeah, it's like dating, right? Like you got to see somebody and get to know them over a period of time. You ain't just jumping in and getting married. So, I got to work towards it. And then, speaking of frequency and mediums, we buy so much stuff, digital, social, TV, radio, billboards, all the things. It's not one size fits all, right? So, do you want to kind of speak to that? Because I know it used to be, hey, just 3 times a month back in the day, or 4 times a month, 5 times for lead gen and this and that for, brand awareness. How has that changed?
I think the biggest part of it has changed because we have so many different channels now. Like before,
Mhm.
you had TV, you had radio, you had out of home, you pretty much had print. And then now, with the evolution of everything online, we've incorporated streaming channels, we've incorporated social media, we've incorporated all these extra things into our lives that then that's where the frequency either across those channels or as a blended market really kind of comes into play. So, if you're thinking about how your potential audience watches TV as an example, you want to make sure that even on your broadcast television versus if they're using like a streaming service as an example, you want to be kind of be able to have that ability to be in both spaces because we
Mhm.
don't always know at any given point in time if someone is bouncing between those different things. Like they may be watching the local news, but then they may
Mhm.
also be watching one of their favorite programs on streaming or catching up, binge watching, like a
Yeah.
show that they may have missed or, that their friends are talking about and they want to join in
Mhm.
the conversation. Same thing with radio. I mean, we have our all have our daily habits like in the morning throughout the day. You may get into your car and go to work, but are you listening to the local radio? Are you listening to a podcast?
Mhm.
Those are differences just in people's unique kind of listening habits.
Yeah. And that brings up a good point too. You're talking about consumers and habits and some of these tactics that we purchase, whether, like you said, radio or podcast, even looking at these on a week by week basis versus a monthly basis, some of them we have to look at very uniquely based on the loyalty of the person that's consuming this media. So, do you want to kind of talk through also like how you look at certain ones on a weekly basis versus ones on a monthly basis and some of those baselines you're looking for?
Yeah. So some of the ones on a monthly basis, we know typically, even with like social media, we know people are digesting, consuming really regularly on social media, if not almost daily, at least a few times a week.
Hmm.
And so then what we try to do with like social as an example is try to build that frequency over the course of a month just to make sure that, as people are popping in and out, checking in on friends, checking in on family, community events, that we have that message present and ready to go. But not make it too overwhelming where
Hmm.
that's all that they see because, we don't want to annoy people to the point of, okay,
Yeah.
you see it too much and you hit that threshold of, okay, now
Hmm.
this, let's
Then you're
kind of
angry
take
at
it
the
back a
brand.
little bit.
Yeah.
And then, with your traditional broadcast channels, typically we've looked at opportunities where it is a little bit more on a weekly basis just because we're lighting some of the schedules, budgets and things like that will kind of play an impact there. And so, if somebody's bouncing around and we know that we've got those loyal listeners, like on a radio station, or loyal viewers to
Hmm.
a local news program, we can kind of tailor or refine some of those adjustments on that weekly schedule just to make sure
Hmm.
that, we're hitting them enough during those times that we're going to stay top of mind and get
Yeah.
them to react in a manner that we're looking to create that engagement or those conversions.
And one of the things I love that you're able to do for our clients is you can kind of identify over a period of time that like law of diminishing return. So once we have enough patterns built in and enough data, we can kind of see that desired threshold where it's like you said, you don't want to go too heavy because it could be annoying to the consumer, but also there's that law of diminishing return that kicks in at that point. So it's efficiency on spend for a client, which I love being able to share that kind of information with the clients that we service. We can kind of work to find that right space for them. All right. Well, we hope that everybody that tuned in today got a little bit of inspiration. If you are, doing your own media buys, a little bit of education on looking at frequency for your own buys. If you are working with an agency, just making sure that you guys are working hand in hand to watch those desired levels. And tune in on the 1123 social channels. And Tracy and I will be, here to talk about trending topics in media and all things media that we're seeing for the agency, but also on the view in the landscape of media across the country too. So, all right, have a good rest of your week. Have a good rest of your day.